The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted nearly everyone on the planet. Most of us have endured significant lifestyle changes. This past year, I served as the founding director of a cyber psychology program at a major polytechnic university in the United States. We established a brand new degree program in a new discipline, and it went live during the pandemic. For the first year, the program, which was designed to be in person, was essentially remote due to COVID-19. How ironic and how relevant. The importance of cyber psychology and human-computer interaction as a field of study has never been more important in our increasingly technologically connected world. And this importance has only accelerated during COVID-19. Given these realities, I'd like to take this time to discuss some of the ways we have been affected by the pandemic and predict what lies ahead in our post-pandemic future. Number one, we are struggling with anxiety and mental health issues. Many of us are worried about the future and are struggling with anxiety or mood disorders. Drug use and overdose increased during the pandemic. Now we are worried about new variants and breakthrough infections. Those who have been hospitalized have suffered through long periods of isolation. People who lost family members, friends, and loved ones endured profound loss and grief. Healthcare workers and first responders experienced, and in some places continue to experience, extreme psychological and physical stress. For those in abusive relationships, staying at home and being more isolated has meant no reprieve from physical, emotional, or mental abuse, and not having outside support. People recognize they are struggling and are more eager for help. We have become more open to different types of support and online formats for learning how to cope. Teletherapy, for example, has had a 12-fold increase in its use by psychologists during the pandemic. I predict that, as with any traumatic event, we should expect the effects to be long-lasting. Virtual services aren't going anywhere. The therapeutic landscape will expand in breadth and scope. In addition to teletherapy, whereby a therapist meets with a client or clients through an online platform, we will see increased integration of AI, apps, and other digital technologies, such as virtual agents and robots. A major upside of the growth of digital services is that their increased use can improve inequity of care due to physical, financial, or geographical barriers to therapy access. While we see great potential, especially in mental health care, the reality is that most psychology training has not kept up with advances in technology. And that makes many mental health professionals unprepared, even those with a positive attitude toward tech solutions. What needs to change? First, mental health curriculum must expand. Education and training in digital therapeutics, telepsychology, care that blends virtual and in-person services, and the range of technologies available. Counseling must be culturally responsive to the breadth of those needing help, as individuals from diverse backgrounds, such as those without a college degree, women, and Black and Latinx workers are those most likely to transition to new occupations due to COVID-19 trends and will need support. The A, massive increase in the number of people requiring mental health and career assistance, coupled with B, an increased interest in alternative approaches such as yoga and meditation, will make the integration of these alternative interventions into standard care and virtual psychotherapy a necessity. Number two, we haven't had in-much in-person contact. The day-to-day interactions that make up our lives, from the mundane to the more profound, all but vanished this past year and a half. Children have missed interpersonal and social contact during some of their most critical developmental stages, potentially impacting their learning of social skills, sports, and other team activities whereby young people learn cooperation were put on hold. Yet, about 1/2 of Americans, regardless of whether or not they received a vaccine, report feeling uneasy about in-person interactions. I predict that navigating the new normal is going to be awkward. Those who possess more limited social skills pre-COVID will need some extra help and support. But regardless of personality type or personal situation, socializing and doing business with others face-to-face will require a period of adjustment. Large crowds, commonplace before, may pose a shock to the system. And exiting a conversation will no longer just happen by hitting the leave meeting button on Zoom. Coaches, therapists, and motivational speakers can capitalize on our collective experience during the pandemic to encourage inclusivity and collaboration. Number 3, we are even more reliant on online platforms and the internet for work, play, attending events, and information. Approximately 70% of Americans have had online social interactions since the start of the pandemic. This includes social media, online chat rooms, or video calls. We have come to rely on online platforms for some of our most fundamental activities. We have become accustomed to the accessibility and convenience of online access, and I predict that this will continue to rule the day. Organizations will expand their online services to maintain and grow their employee and client base. Online platforms will also allow people the freedom to live farther from their place of employment, perhaps with more work from home days and fewer days of commuting. Some no longer have an office space to even return to. Many people will simply expect a Zoom option for both work and leisure, including weddings, religious ceremonies, and entertainment. Number 4, we became used to work and leisure at our own pace. The internet and online platforms have drastically changed the ways in which we consume information, including our ability to control it. The production and consumption of information has democratized. For example, we're able to watch pre-recorded videos at an increased speed just by the click of a keystroke. There's also more recorded material available. Will we forgo live lectures and conversations if they will be pre-recorded and we can fast forward as we like? One may wonder how such information exchange may ultimately impact our listening skills, our ability to process complex information, and our patience as increased productivity, busyness, and efficiency have become cultural norms. I predict that the ability to control the speed of information will be even more appealing as will having access to recorded material. Online information won't be the best choice in all situations, and even if it's available, the manner of delivery may need refinement. We will need to strike the right balance between remote or online activity and face-to-face interactions. Consultants will be called upon to tackle these issues in educational, work, and social settings, and we can expect a growing industry devoted to how, when, and what information is actually shared. Number 5, educators and students had to quickly learn new tools and adjust to the loss of classroom and campus culture. Students studying remotely this past year have reported disconnectedness and other socio-emotional challenges, especially with passive learning strategies as opposed to active learning techniques, which support engagement, motivation, and satisfaction. Generation Z adults have been the most likely generation to say that their mental health has actually worsened since the start of the pandemic. And parents have reported difficulties balancing responsibilities, learner motivation, accessibility, and learner outcomes. Parents of children with disabilities, in particular, indicated struggles with getting their child's needs met remotely. So clearly, we must proceed with caution here. While online platforms have been an important part of our ability to engage with others, a reliance on them must be tempered. We have realized that online learning is not effective for everyone. Those with special needs require more frequent or even face-to-face communication. Also, online content or remote learning can't simply mimic traditional approaches. I predict that we can expect more research that addresses attention span, learning styles, and its impact on how people process information in different mediums. In addition, we can expect online instructional design principles being more broadly taught or services offered to educators. Number 6, we haven't been at the office in a really long time, and some of us may not be going back. Since the pandemic, there has been a big shift in the way that many employees work. Approximately 30% of US-based companies report that remote work or hybrid work, that is, work from home some days and in the office other days, will continue post-pandemic. Interestingly, the majority of these companies report that the shift to remote work has been successful, with 40% reporting an increase in productivity. Workers seem to agree, with the majority of those surveyed indicating their preference to work from home. And companies are saving money by reducing office space. However, working from home has not been beneficial for all. For some, the lack of social interactions resulted in feelings of loneliness and isolation. Parents working from home during the pandemic experienced strain in meeting both work and family demands, not a new phenomena for those working from home pre-pandemic. Some studies have shown that women workers had a higher risk of depression while working from home, assumed to be the result of women still being the ones who are primarily responsible for household chores, home activities, and childcare. I predict that the move to remote work will result in positive changes in the workplace climate. More traditional supervisors who insist on face-to-face time in the office, whether necessary or not, or those who are micromanagers, will be forced to re-examine their attitudes about worker presence and productivity. Remote or hybrid work will require challenges to traditional ways of thinking that have excluded consideration of caretaking. For example, even with the use of online platforms, employers will still need to consider issues such as reasonable meeting times for those with caretaking responsibilities, as well as flexibility with regard to how, when, and where work is accomplished. Similarly, we will increasingly question the necessity for face-to-face meetings. Conferences have been held without the inconvenience of parking and travel, and the added benefit of reduction in environmental pollution. Existing trends have accelerated during the pandemic. There's no doubt about that. Cell phones, allowing 24/7 access to emails, texts, alerts, and communications, combined with increased remote work, have blurred the boundaries between work and home or leisure. For those accustomed or unaccustomed to working from home, boundary management strategies need to be developed and implemented. Number 7, we've been more exposed to misinformation and disinformation. Misinformation is one of the biggest challenges of this century. The speed at which such information is able to spread online through shares and likes is unprecedented. Misinformation and disinformation about COVID, vaccines, and treatment erupted online from the start of the pandemic, endangering public health. For COVID, as well as other issues, scientific research has been in competition with junk science and unfounded conspiracy theories presented in easily digestible ways, manipulating emotions by taking advantage of people's fears and anxieties. I predict that combating misinformation will continue to be a major challenge and focus of our generation. Increasingly sophisticated applications of artificial intelligence, such as in the case of deep fakes, will be used to pose political and social dangers, eroding trust in public institutions, damaging reputations, and exacerbating social divisions. We can expect to see greater attention in schools to teaching critical thinking, using games to increase awareness of disinformation tactics, and education around how online information is selected for us through computer algorithms, serving as content consistent with our pre-existing attitudes and beliefs, thereby perpetuating echo chambers and filter bubbles. We must empower people, beginning with our youth, to make informed decisions about how they approach and absorb online information. This challenge must be tackled by social scientists, computer engineers, marketers, and policymakers working together to create innovative solutions and to hold those who intentionally spread fake information accountable. In conclusion, the post-COVID future will both force us to change and provide opportunities to choose change. This will require a greater attention to the mental health and wellness of individuals and communities, a shift in the way we think about work, new thinking on how to achieve inclusion, civil discourse, and institutional trust, and resilience for coping with the continued impacts of the pandemic. Resilience is one of the most important buffers for effectively handling significant transitions and serious mental health challenges that will continue to take center stage as we pivot to a new world. Thank you.